Hello friends, I am so excited about today's video. I am continuing the Salon Suite makeover DIYs, and I am so glad you're here to go along with me. Today I'm making over a little side table that I've had in my salon for several years, and I never quite loved the color of it, but now it is amazing. Let's get started. Okay, here's my little table. It's hard to tell out here in the sunshine the color. It was more of a grayish, and I really kind of like blue gray, a gray with a blue undertone. So I got this sander. I ordered it from Amazon, and it's just a little hand sander, and it uses the same sandpaper that my orbital sander uses, and it just velcros on there. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a light sand. I washed it down already and cleaned it, but I want to make sure all the hairspray, all the dust, everything is off of it. So I'm just going to give it a light sand. I'm not really trying to take anything off except a little grime. Okay, so light sanding. The legs got sanded, the whole piece. I'm going to take one of those soft little cloths that you get from Dollar Tree and just wipe it down really good all over so that there's no little, pieces of residue to get in my paint. Now, I've got all my supplies here together. I'm going to use Rust-Oleum chalked paint in the color Aged Gray. This is a beautiful blue-based gray. I love it. I'm going to stir it up really good. I'm going to use my sponge applicator. It's a really wide one. It worked really great for this project. I'm just going to wipe it off that little stir stick. Don't want to waste any paint. Then I just poured some in a little plastic container so it makes it easier to apply. And I'm just going to give it 2 coats of paint. It was really hot and really windy, and it was drying this paint almost as fast as I could apply it. Then my husband started mowing the grass while I'm painting my project outside. Yes, he did. I'm very grateful that he mowed the yard, but I had to take this project inside, which is fine. But I really liked the lighting out here was bright, a lot of shadows because it's so bright, but it also was drying super fast. I was really, really loving that. And then I took a smaller sponge brush for the legs, and I stippled onto the legs because I didn't like those streaky marks it left there. The top piece had a little bit of wood grain to it. The little piece that goes in the bottom, I don't know if you noticed that in the original picture, there's a shelf on the bottom. It has that same little bit of wood grain, so the paint looked nicer on it. On the legs, it just looked a little streaky. So I'm just going to dab, stipple, stipple. I would put the paint on, get it on there, and then I would just dab all over. Now we're taking it inside. We're using Rust-Oleum in linen white. We have 2 good coats of the gray on here. It's completely dry, and we're taking an old, rusted, crusty chippy brush. This is the best paint brush for the job, and I'm going to dry brush it. I'm getting most of the paint off on that brown, super thick brown paper down there, and I'm just hitting the edges, almost like I just want to outline it. So I'm getting most of the paint on the sides of this paintbrush, and when I wipe it off, I wipe on the sides. So you can see here that I'm trying to outline the edges right now, and then the bristles are just going to lightly get on the rest of it. I love the look of this, and I did it on this entire piece. I did that way. I'm going to show you a little bit that I did the top, but I did these sides. I'm going to do a beautiful stamp on this part right here that I'm doing now shortly. The legs, I just had a little paint on my brush, and I just swiped it back and forth, all the way around the legs. I just kind of gave it a whipping. That's what you get in Texas. You get a whipping. I don't know what you got where you live, but in Texas, we got whippings. Okay, here we go with the top. I'm going to do that same kind of method on the edges, but I took long strokes, so I didn't have globs in the middle. But I'm going to give you an up close where I stumbled because I'm clumsy. This is not it. It's on the other side. And I got a little right here. Well, right here somewhere. It's right here. Okay, I got a little clumsy. But I just went with it on the sides, smeared it in with my finger a little bit, and it turned out great. So, there's no boo-boos when you're doing rustic. But I love this dry brushed. It's a heavy dry brush, but I love this look. I love the gray and the white. This is so me. I love how this turned out. Next, I'm going to take my little finger sander, and it's like a 220 grit paper on there, and I'm going to so lightly, ever so lightly, you can see some of that excess falling off, and I had to go get the little mini vac and suck all that up. But I'm just trying to just make it a little bit smooth for that stamp, and I just want it to be smooth. I don't want it to be there to be any roughness, but I don't want to take any of that paint off. I'm not going for a distressed rustic look on this. I want it to be beautiful. Now I'm going to take this Vase finishing wax I picked up at Home Depot for an excellent price. I think it was $16 for this huge can of it. And I'm using this, I think this is by Folk Art, this wax brush. I've had it for years. I did my piano with it when I painted my piano, and it works fantastic. This wax is fantastic. I did 2 coats of this wax. I let it set overnight, and then I did a second coat. I did a second coat only on the top and the shelf because I do use this table. This table is a very well-used piece in my salon. This is by the door where people drop their purses, their keys, and I put my laptop if I'm bringing it to upload videos. This stamp is by IOD. It's the La Campagna set. I'm going to use some IOD black ink. I'm going to ink this one particular little stamp up in all different ways to put it on here. Now, I'm only going to stamp the parts that are going to touch the rim. So I inked that up. I'm going to lay it on here very carefully. You can see that I have ink all over the edges of that. I'm being careful not to press down on those edges that have the ink because I did not have a wet wipe handy to wipe that off, but I quickly went and picked one up. So I'm just going to randomly place, I'm not randomly placing, I'm strategically placing this stamp all over this little, and I see how I decided where I was going to put it before I inked it up. And then I go all the way down there, and then I kind of go back and just do little pieces of the leaf and stamp it in some of those empty spaces so the entire piece is covered just like this. Is that not so gorgeous? It is simple. It doesn't have a lot of molds on it. It doesn't have a lot of color on it, but I absolutely am in love with my new table. So let me know what you think about it. Would you have added more color to it? Wait till you see the Salon Suite in the end, and you're going to love it just as much as I do. Okay, what do you think about that little table? I hope that you think it's as amazing as I do. It's going to look so adorable. I cannot wait to get all these DIYs completed, get them in the salon, and show you what it looks like in there. It's going to take me a little bit to get it all together and get the salon cabinets painted. So hang on with me. We got one more DIY video with the decor pieces, and then the reveal will be soon after. So hang on. You don't want to miss it. Also, we're going to have a big giveaway coming up because we reached the 10,000 subscriber mark. My name is Kendra. You're watching Late Night Creations, and let's get on with some crafting shenanigans. This is absolutely the easiest DIY in this video. A client gave me this gorgeous cross a couple of years ago for Christmas. I really hated taking it out of the salon and making it over, but she is going to absolutely love how I did this. She also watches some of my videos. Hello, Louisa, if you're watching. Sorry that I'm making over this cross, but you're going to love it when I get finished. So I just sanded it down just to make it smooth. That was my intention, not to get rid of the lettering, but to make it smooth. And then I have this beautiful decoupage paper. You may remember the sign I made a couple weeks ago, maybe last week. I probably made it a couple weeks ago. It was in last week's video with this same paper. I absolutely love this rose, and I thought it would be perfect on this cross because the cross represents to me the death of Christ, my Savior. He died on that cross for me and you. Even if you don't believe it, he still died for you. And he is the Rose of Sharon, the bright and morning star. And I'm going to move on with this voiceover before I get emotional, because I get emotional when I talk about the love that Jesus has for me and the love I have for him. So you see that I just cut it out to fit this cross, the shape of the cross, and I'm just going to put a nice, thick, smooth layer of Mod Podge. Don't say it yet. You're going to see. Okay. I lay it down, and I start ironing right on top of it. It's a pretty thick piece of paper, so I didn't use any parchment paper. But, yeah, right about here, right here to be exact, I realized I did not paint the cross first. And then I'm like, well, too late. Let's go on with it. So I ironed it down, and you can see, I can see faintly through there some of that lettering. But in the end, you cannot see it enough for it to matter, and it also just looks like it's part of the paper. So, all is well. It's not anything worth crying over or not using. It ends up turning out beautiful. And I kept it very simple. You can see here, I'm going to just sand off the excess of this paper with my finger sander. If you guys don't have one of these finger sanders, it's worth every penny you spend on it. It works marvelous. Then I'm going to take that gray wax that I created with a little bit of gray paint in the white wax, and it does dry fast. The paint in it makes it dry fast, so you have to work kind of in small sections and work fast with it. And then on top, I'm using some clear wax over my decoupage paper to seal it. And this is how it turned out. And you really cannot see the lettering through there unless you absolutely know and you look really close. But I think this cross, in its simplicity, with that rose right in the center, I don't even know if that's a rose, with that flower right in the center, is absolutely stunning. Okay, next, I've had this vase in my salon, and I just had it up on a shelf. I brought it home. I cleaned it up really good. It's glass. It's beautiful. And we are going to put an IOD mold on it. This is the Frames 2 mold, and I have this little sticker. I've had these in my stash for a couple years, and we're going to use that little lady today. I'm going to put some cornstarch in my mold so that the DOS Air clay does not stick to it. So then I'm going to just, dump out the excess because we don't want it to be all dry. I think when you work with the clay and it's super dry is when it cracks. So I noticed that the DOS Air Dry clay is a little more moist than some of the other air dry clays that I've tried, and I think that that's why it doesn't crack as bad. So I'm just going to push it down in there and try to make it as flat on the back as I can. My friend Myra from Farm Fresh Designs 59 is the absolute queen of air dry clay in molds. Now, I'm just using that brayer because I saw somebody else do that. I wish I could remember who I saw do it. If y'all have seen someone do that, leave it in the comments below. Maybe it's the same person I saw do it. This mold was a little bit big to use that with, but it did work pretty good. I could see with smaller ones where it would work really well. I'm just going to pop it out of there, and there's always a little bit of crusty on the edges on mine, and so I just tap it under. Like I'm tapping it and kind of pushing it under. And that works really good because it's still soft. Now I'm going to take Beadboard by DIY. I get all my DIY paints from Sammy, www.unicorndustdesigns. You can always find her link in my description box below. With a really soft paintbrush, I'm going to apply that beadboard all over this mold in all the little details, way down in all those little nooks and crannies, and across the frame part. And later in the video, you will see I decided I didn't want it white. And I end up painting it that aged gray by Rust-Oleum. I did not show that on camera because painting can be redundant and take up a lot of time. And there are other things I would rather show you than me painting. Now, this is still wet. You can see it's very, very fragile. I'm going to put this cloth down to keep my vase from rolling around. It still wanted to roll around. I had to really figure out how to keep it from rolling around. I'm trying to make sure that I have it centered on the cloth. It's still just a little wet to flip over in my hand, so I take my heat gun And I dry the paint. I'm not trying to dry the mold, just the paint, so that I can flip it over in my hand like a pancake and put some Type Bond, quick and thick. I put that on the screen for you guys because sometimes I call this glue Quick Bond. It is not Quick Bond. It is Type Bond, quick and thick. I'm trying to use a shortcut. Now I'm finding the center of the front because it is beveled. You see how that top is kind of beveled? So the front's a little bit shorter than the top. So I just flop it on there and I tap around the edges and all across it very gently to make sure that it is stuck like Chuck. Okay, now I'm going to try to keep it from rolling around until it dries because that glass is so slick and that glue is so snotty. It is trying to slide around. Does that remind you of a song from the 70s? Slip sliding around. Okay, I won't sing for you. Plus, we don't want to get copyrighted. Okay, it taped. I let it sit overnight. It's dry. I put the tape on pretty loosely because I did not want to mess up or smush my frame because it is gorgeous. I put on this little sticker. It's just a peel back sticker. You just peel the back off, stick it down, which I'm glad that it's white behind it and I didn't do it gray first because the gray behind it would have muted it too much. So I just stick it down to my frame. It wrinkled a tiny little bit in some places, but I think that just makes it look even better. It gives it a little more character. Makes it, yeah, I don't know, makes it look old. And she looks old-fashioned. Now I decided this is where I just said, oh yeah, I had the gray. I painted it gray already. And then I take the white wax and I use a generous amount of the white wax with this makeup brush. And I apply it and get it all in. Well, I couldn't get it in all of those little details, so I ended up getting a chippy brush or a stencil brush. I think it was a stencil brush. Let's see. Wait for it. There, a stencil brush. And I get quite a bit of that wax on my brush and then get it down in there. It's a really creamy, smooth white wax from DIY, and so it goes down in there. Now I'm just taking a very soft, it is most likely a scrap of an old t-shirt that I cut up, and I buff away on the top, and it looks like a little piece of aged concrete, like a statue. I love it. It is so gorgeous. I love it. It's beautiful. I cannot wait to sit it back up on that shelf and have a brand new look. I cannot take the shelf down and bring it home and redo it, so I'm going to redo it in the salon. Stay tuned for that. Okay, next DIY. This one was a little hard to record, so I apologize. So stick with me, hang with me, use your imagination. I have these two pieces of wood, and I'm going to make a caddy to keep all my hair supplies in. So I'm going to cut that off first, that side off first, with my scroll saw. And yes, I have this inside my craft cottage. It has a vacuum that catches all the sawdust, which is amazing. And I'm just taking it slow and easy, and I'm going to cut this side, and that little lever I just pulled just blows the sawdust away from me. It blows it underneath. Well, if it goes underneath that, where that blade is, it just sucks all the sawdust underneath and into the vacuum. It's so cool. My former scroll saw did not have that, and I had to use it outside. And I didn't use it like I will this one. I just got this one for Christmas, so. Okay, that is completed. Now I'm going to use that piece to trace the other side so they're identical, because I'm not that great at drawing symmetrical things. So now we're just going to speed this up and get this side cut and cut it as well. Then I'm going to drill out. My husband has this amazing little, I don't know, we just were calling it a paddle borer. I don't know what it's called, but you can drill that type of hole that I'm showing you. It's not really a hole, but you can bore out a round circle. And that's what I wanted to do, because I'm going to use a spindle as my handle. Surprise, surprise. So this is how it works. You just put it in there and you use it like a drill, and look, that spindle's going to fit in there perfect. Fortunately, the spindle was the size of the paddle that he had. Now, I took this outside, and with my orbital sander, I sanded all the edges. I sanded everything smooth. I'm showing you here the dimensions because occasionally someone will want to know the dimensions of the wood that I'm using in my projects. So you can just stop it, pause it, write it down if you're interested in making yours the exact same size I'm making mine for some reason. I did not put a bottom in this caddy because I'm going to set it on my little cabinet, and I don't need a bottom in it. If I need a bottom in it, I'll put one in at a later date. I used this sponge. It was round. I got it on Shein, and I got them in a package. I cut it in half, and I just pounced it. I used it. I sponge painted these so that it would have a little texture to it. I'm going to use the grain sack stripe from the IOD Mercantile stamp. I'm going to use Stone Gray ink by IOD, and I'm going to put it over here on the side because I'm going to put some lettering. You can see the letters over on the left. We're going to put those on the left side of this. This will be the side that shows. Where it sits on my little dresser. This is the end that will show. This is the IOD typesetting stamp. It's a beautiful stamp set of letters. I don't know if it's still available, if you can still get it, if it's still in the shops, if you can get it from someone. But I'm going to spell out Salon. I'm going to use Petticoat Pink, and I'm going to sponge it on the letters and then put it down here. I want it to not be real stark. I want it to be soft. Soft it is, and I love the way this turned out. I'm going to wipe this off really good with a wet wipe and clean my stamps and take good care of them. If you're good to them, they will be good to you. On this end, this is the end that will face the wall. Few people will ever see it, and I just did it like that. Now I'm going to take this same stamp I used on my table with some black ink, and this will be the front that faces outward, and I'm going to do the same thing on this that I did on the table. I'm going to ink it up, and I'm going to start with the entire full stamp right in the center, and I'm going to work my way out, just stamping bits and pieces of it how I think it looks good. And like I said, I'm going to clean it off with a wet wipe each time, and then I'm going to lay my stamp out to see how I like it, and then I'll ink it, and then I'll go back in and just put bits and pieces in there where I feel like it needs a little flower, a little leaf, whatever. That's how it looks when I finish. The other side, I'm going to use Kindest Regards. This is one of my very favorite stamps IOD has. And I'm going to, excuse me, stamp it on here for just a simple stamp. I'm going to use my brayer tool. This wood was a tiny bit warped. It was some scrap wood that I got from my client, Mr. Yankel. Now, on the front side, I'm going to take Petticoat Pink. I'm going to water it down. I'm going to make a watercolor. I've done this several times on my channel with the stamps and some paint, and it's such a beautiful look. You can still see the stamp through the paint because it's very watered down. And the stamps are so, the ink sets up so permanent that it doesn't smear if you let it dry completely. And this was completely dry. I'm going to take Farm Fresh by DIY and water it down and do the leaves. And I think this turned out perfect. This is perfect. This is so my heart for decorating. So my salon is going to be, it's going to be gorgeous. It's been pretty simple and plain. You saw it in a previous video. I should do that little video again in another video. I should add that clip. Now I'm just going to dry brush a little pink on that Kindest Regards side. I used that gray wax that I mixed with a little bit of white wax and did the spindle. I just waxed that spindle with that after I had painted it with the white. And then I drilled holes in the end because I'm going to use my little skewer method as dowel sticks to secure that even more. Now I'm going to use some of Dollar Tree's tumbling tower blocks to secure this because that wood is kind of thin and I was afraid if I tried to nail it or screw it, it would split the wood. So I just glued them on, and then I'm going to glue it to the sides. Now I'm going to use that Titebond Quick and Thick, and it is such an awesome hold, and it dries pretty fast. So I feel confident this is going to hold up. So I'm going to use mostly the Titebond, and I'm going to add just a little bit of hot glue so that that will hold it while I'm working. I did put all the sides together to make, you know, it's going to be four-sided. It's a caddy. I did two sides and the dowel, and then added the last side. You can see here. I did go back in and paint those tower blocks with the beadboard. And this is how it turned out when it's all put together. I cleared it all with that Varathane wax like I did the table. Let me know how you think this turned out. And it's going to be so beautiful with all my Moroccan oil products in there because they are teal bottles, and it's just going to look beautiful. Thank you, friends, for watching this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a comment below, give this video a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, do all the things that help this channel. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God